a U.S. soldier crossed into North Korea willfully and without authorization. So a United States soldier was in custody, actually, in South Korea in a prison. He'd been held on assault charges and was facing additional military discipline. And he was escorted to the airport, but instead of getting on his flight, he basically ran away. He joined a tour group with a group of civilians who were going near the border. He escaped that tour group. He ran into North Korea. And of course, this creates a massive diplomatic problem. The United States and North Korea are not in contact with one another. But of course, the United States government is going to want to get this guy back. What could he have done that was so bad that he thought he would be better off in North Korea?
Maybe he thought every woman looked like Yeonmi Park, and he thought he'd take his chances.
It's just something like that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I mean, it's wild. It's insanely dangerous. Guy must not have been thinking. Was he drunk? What's going on?
And I wonder
20s.
now if
he's
North
20,
Korea is going to be like, it's great that you're here. Just tell us about your job.
Oh, for sure.
Let's hear what's going on. They are being very mean to you, that American military. We don't like that at all.
Actually, Ian just raised a perfect point. Early 20s. I do think that might factor in because there's a lot of danger tourism. Like one of the guys that we work with in Lotus East office, Callum, went over to Afghanistan. So just nodding his head. He went over with Lord Miles. And I don't know if anyone knows, but there was an update from the Taliban today of Lord Miles is still being very politely, very securely, very friendly held by the Taliban. So this might be a sort of danger tourism thing of where he's going, well, this looks like a crazy place nobody's been to. Maybe I'll try my luck.
I mean, to that end, we should point out that Otto Warmbier was the last high profile, at least. He's not the most recent American to have gone over, but he was a college student. He had gone over because he wanted to see the world. He wanted it to be interesting, and apparently he stole a poster and got held for years and years and ended up dying.
That's right.
Shortly after Trump negotiated his return.
I think that he said someone in his church group claimed that if he brought something back that they would give him a car, something wild like that. And
Sure.
so the dude was sentenced to 10 years hard labor, if I'm not mistaken. That might not have been exactly, but he ended up dying before we could get him back.
Yeah, they said it was botulism that killed him, but then there are reports. Actually, there was a North Korean spy that had defected away from North Korea that said he was killed. He was poisoned. So that
he
wouldn't
spent a long time in a coma, according to North Korea, which they just never updated anyone on. I mean, this is a complete tragedy. It's a very sad story. And I don't mean to make light of it, but this idea that we would have young men who think, oh, well, I'll just go to North Korea. I mean, I don't think that was necessarily Otto's motivation. I think there's probably something, very masculine and very real about wanting to see dangerous places. With this American soldier, I really think we have to question what is going on where you think running across the border to North Korea is your answer, right?
And part of the issue is America being on the world stage now, not having President Trump in office, not having the same strong but slightly strange relationship with little rocket man Kim Jong-un. How are you going to get him back? There's no bargaining power to get this guy back and any of the secrets that he might know. That's a pretty precarious situation to be in.
Because initially when this story broke, I thought, what is so bad that North Korea is the answer? But now, you may be able to live a nice life where North Korea says, thank you for all this information for as long as they're willing to tolerate you, right? I mean, it's a very bizarre story. I have never been in a position where I think
I'd be better off in North Korea.
I'll just flee to North Korea.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty concerning on the macro scale, like that an American soldier would defect to North Korea of all places. That's really kind of freakish.
That is very freakish.
Like, what kind of lack of faith you would have in your military to do that to North Korea?
It has happened before. It has happened before.
Has it?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, is it people fleeing charges like this? This guy was going to get charged with assault?
No, I don't think it's fleeing charges. It's just people that have left the military and crossed the border and then have been joined. They use them for, I forget his name was Ken, something like that. They use him for propaganda purposes.
For movies, right?
I guess.
Yeah,
if there's
like
anywhere,
movie star,
anywhere you won't be extradited from, it's somewhere like North Korea.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, I don't know. You'd think people would cross that border more often since socialism works so well. It's actually interesting.
Maybe that's it. Maybe he's just so young that he was like, I don't like the American military anymore, and I really think socialism is it. So I'll just head on over.
Well, I'm looking for places to be refugees too, because I was talking to you guys about this off air. The UK government at the moment is passing something called the Online Safety Bill. They used to call it the Online Harms Bill. So always the Loving Kittens and Puppies Act. And basically what it means is that it puts the UK government's arbitration body for television media that stipulates you have to be unbiased, unless you're left wing, which you can get away with it, in charge of every internet broadcast show. So if you guys were broadcasting in the UK, from the UK, not just streaming in the UK, then you would have to have, I don't know, like Vorsh on all the time as a guest to balance it out. And it would just derail the conversation on whatever topics you were doing. And so, like, our show won't operate, especially because, as well, the possible new prime minister wants to criminalize misgendering. So it's like, am I going to be, I don't know, crashing on a couch in Tennessee in like a year's time? Who knows? I mean, North Korea's looking real sunny this time of year compared to Britain.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're not going to be the kind of political freedom you're looking for, but I hear you. England is very scary right now, and this is something that a lot of progressives neglect to acknowledge very conveniently when they talk about the kind of draconian speech codes that they want to impose socially. So they'll say things like, well, these social media companies might be censoring people, but it's done privately, and like political correctness or wokeism aren't real problems because it's all about just being polite and being a different, respectful and decent person. Of course, in Europe, people are actually prosecuted for saying things that challenge the regime that are considered, offensive, that are harmful and, quote unquote, damaging to the LGBTQ community. It's easy to forget this as an American, that in the Western world, there are people who are criminally charged for saying things that fly in the face of left-wing orthodoxy. There are people who are criminally charged for saying, effectively, men are men and women are women, and I'm not going to call a man a woman or a woman a man.
And there are people who cheer this on, right? You'll get people who will say, yes, you should absolutely pass that bill because I don't want to hear these things, and I don't want other people to hear these things I don't even know what you're saying, but I have heard are offensive. And that's what's the most disturbing to me, that we have a complete lack of regard for the fact that someone whose opinion is different than you might not be hateful, right? It's just different. We live in a culture that breeds fear, which begets compliance. And I find that to be so disturbing.
You're allowed to hate. I mean, in the United States, you're allowed to hate. It's totally cool. As long as you don't commit a crime, you can hate all you want. I don't like this hate crime crap. I know it's like, what is how do you know what if they had hate in their heart when they were saying or doing?
Sorry, but since when did you murder someone out of love? Even a crime of passion is hatred in the moment. So it's complete nonsensical. We've got two pieces of legislation in the UK that really screw us over. It's Section 127 of the Communications Act of 2003. That means that if you say anything that can be deemed, quote, grossly offensive over a digital platform, as long as they find someone who's offended by it, or even in the case of Count Dankula, they couldn't, but the Scottish government prosecuted him anyway, you can be prosecuted for saying something that offends someone. And then we also have the Equalities Act, which creates a sort of hierarchy of protected characteristics. And the frustrating thing is, and this is why, and I don't wish to disparage some of the TERFs, even though I find the label radical feminist sends a shiver up my spine.
It should.
Yeah.
But they're the only good feminists in a lot of ways.
My friend Mary Harrington and the reactionary feminists would seem to dissent on that point, but I don't want to get too derailed. The feminists are using the Equality Act legislation to fight the reason that they are being prosecuted under the Equality Act. So they just got like gender critical beliefs added to the Equality Act, but it's like you're just stacking more protected characteristics on top of each other. So it's just going to be more absurd. What you need to do is jettison the protected characteristics framework and have something akin to an American First Amendment. Except we don't have a written constitution because that's kind of anathema to our country.
Yeah, you mentioned this thing also about the court system and Dankula and this case. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't the opinion handed down that context didn't matter?
Yes.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That you could have a governing legal authority, a judge, say that context doesn't matter.
He took it to pretty much every court that he could, and they still wouldn't take it.
Context matters. In an example of that is like jaywalking. Of course, it's illegal, but if there's a baby in the middle of the road and a car's coming, you run out in the street and grab the baby and take him to the sidewalk. You violated the law. No one's going to prosecute you for that. Context matters.
I don't think jaywalking is even illegal in the UK. But the reason,
maybe you're the land of the free.
yeah, it's an every man for himself. The interesting thing though is that we have abolished forgiveness, and Seamus will agree with me on this. When we've become a post-Christian culture, we like to pretend we're a post-religious culture, but they're just a religion without a metaphysic.
That's right.
We now have a one-strike rule that brands you the scarlet letter forever, and the reason we do that as well is because we have met so many of our material needs that now we have moved on to the recognition economy. This is why there's so many information sector jobs like social media or HR or marketing, and this is why there's an infinite number of fractionating pride flags. People want to codify their personality type and demand that you affirm them because their unsettled screaming consciences, their anxieties, them doing something behind closed doors that they know is kind of sordid. They need you to affirm them.
Exactly.
And anytime you don't, it's a transgression on their identity, and so it's akin to violence. And that's the situation we've ended up in.
No, that's exactly what it is, and I think you put it perfectly. They're screaming consciences. Effectively, when they see you criticize them, and in fact, not even necessarily just when they see you criticizing them, when they just see you living and acting like a normal person, having a normal life, and not engaged in the degenerate nonsense that they're engaged in, they are bothered by it because you, in that moment, are a proxy for their conscience. They see what they could be. So this idea that what I do behind closed doors doesn't matter. Yes, of course. Your bedroom door has magical properties such that it totally erases the consequences of your actions from your psyche. And when you go into the outside world, your behavior is not modified, and the way you interact with the rest of us isn't modified or effective by what you've done in there. It's nonsense.
Yeah, you need to create that, whatever sort of thing you're doing, as being the new societal standard, so that you aren't tripping around it like a minefield in every conversation you have. And then you need people to celebrate it so that it makes you feel better about yourself, because just being accepted, not being a special little snowflake, is not enough if you have crippling social anxiety.
Yeah, I think that's the important argument for religion. I know there are criticisms of organized religion, but having something larger than yourself means that you don't need to seek affirmation from a crowd of people or whoever's trendy right now, whoever says, well, I know how you can feel like you're doing the right thing and we'll praise you for doing this. Like, it's such a damaging way to live your life that I am surprised that, well, I'm not surprised because our culture thrives on insecurity. It's funny to me that they can't look themselves in the face and see, oh, I can see the cycle I'm trapped in. I'm never good enough for this ideology that actually hates me and would be fine if I got destroyed because it betters their own agenda.
Yeah, well, and also, sorry, I'll let you jump in a second because I want to hear from you.
The way you said that, thinking about that people being used as pawns to forward a political agenda, like if someone that identifies as a trans female goes into a shooting rage and then is killed by the police, it's like, oh, trans rights, and it's like, what do you mean? That's not what this is about. They weren't given
the support they needed. The justifications become insane because we are willing to defy logic to protect certain people if they fall into certain ideological classes.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.